Hello friends of PowerHouse Bakery. My name is Suzanne Parker and I'm the founder and CEO of our little bakery, PowerHouse Bakery. And you know what? Our full name is PowerHouse Bakery at Nutrition Matters Most. And that's because we really do care about nutrition, and we want to make sure that people that join us here at the bakery are really excited about health. And this time of year, we're kind of getting into cold season. So today I'm going to talk to you about vitamin C. There's so many great things about vitamin C, and oftentimes we kind of think of vitamin C as being from one thing, orange juice. But today I'm going to show you a wide variety of things that we get vitamin C from, and I'm also going to give you a little bit of the down and dirty science about what vitamin C does for our bodies and how important it is to make sure we get enough. So let's get started. When we look at vitamin C, it does a body good. We're going to talk about functions that are really powerful for the body. Vitamin C is important to build and repair. It's got antioxidant power. It's got an important role in forming collagen, which is really the framework for skin and bones. Also, it's important to support neurochemistry, which is a key ingredient in serotonin. And serotonin is one of those brain chemistry components that's so important in making us feel great. So we're going to get started on some of these fun things that I want to show you. First of all, look what I've got in my cooktop. Right here is an absolute beautiful dish that I'm cooking out of cranberries. This is so simple. It's just cooked down cranberries with a little bit of orange juice, and not to mention some of my special PowerHouse Bakery sweet spice. So this is a blend of cardamom, a little bit of cardamom, cinnamon, cloves, allspice, so many wonderful things, and then just a tad of coconut sugar. And then I add in some fresh orange juice. So these beautiful blood oranges are going to go in. I want to make sure I don't get a seed. Also, I do a lot of the skin. So when I use the planer, I get all that beautiful oil off of the skin, and it goes right into my dish. So this cranberry chutney is going to go beautifully with a turkey, just in case you have one handy. And it's also going to be a really nice accompaniment to pork or even a butternut squash. So I'm going to let that cook down, and it will be lovely in just a few minutes. Super easy side dish to make. And then in this dish, I have some beautiful celery that I'm preparing for stuffing, and oh my gosh, it smells so good. You know, vitamin C is rich in so many foods from the earth. I'm going to show you some great ways to add vitamin C to any dish. Starting with this celery, I'm going to add one of my very favorite items from my garden. Check this out. This beautiful parsley has come from my garden. I just trimmed it, and that's going to be a key ingredient in my stuffing. Most of you that have cooked for Thanksgiving know that an important ingredient for stuffing is going to be lots of celery, green onions, and parsley. And so this parsley is loaded with vitamin C. Who would have known, right? We sometimes think of vitamin C as being just in the citrus fruits, like the orange that I put in my cranberry chutney, or even the cranberries themselves are definitely high in vitamin C. But when we start thinking about where other sources of vitamin C are found, the dark green leafies win for sure. So I'm just going to do a rough chop of this beautiful parsley, and it goes into my saute. Did you know that one of the other great resources for vitamin C is potatoes? In fact, when I was doing my research, I found that one of the major places that, or foods that Americans get their vitamin C is from the potato. Crazy. But it's because so often people eat French fries. And so sadly, when the potato is cooked in oil, it does lose some of its vitamin C. But these beautiful little fingerling potatoes are absolutely perfect to use for a great dish, and they're loaded with vitamin C when the skin is still on and there's these beautiful colors. So make sure that we use potatoes with the skin on as much as you can, and it is a great source of vitamin C. While I'm on it, look at the other items that I have on my table. We are also going to be cooking up some Brussel sprouts, loaded with vitamin C. Of course, we know that lemons and limes are a great source, but did you know that tomatoes are also a rich source of vitamin C? And then these beautiful little kiwis, absolutely fabulous. When I was doing my research, I had found that probably the first research ever done on food was from the British military. They could not figure out why their soldiers, or of course their sailors, were suffering from weak bones. Guess what? As soon as they gave them a lime, and they could eat a lime a day, they were cured of their scurvy or their weak bones. And so I thought that was a great example. And probably the very first time the scientific method was actually used to help people use food to treat a disease. So really exciting about that. And now that we're realizing that nutrition matters in so many different areas, preventing disease and also curing disease, vitamin C is right at the top of the list. So let me show you some of the other things that I wanted to cover as my goodies are sauteing away. So when we think about vitamin C that does a body good, what would be some sources that might surprise you? Let's list a few. So I mentioned potatoes. Potatoes, half a cup has just as much vitamin C as one lemon. Crazy, right? So potatoes are a great source. Also bell peppers. So the highest vitamin C will be in the yellow, the red, and the green. They're all very high. So peppers are a great source too. And then when we think of melons, the cantaloupe is a great one. So how do we get enough vitamin C? Wide variety of foods is absolutely the way to do it. And I love that we can really put vitamin C in all the different meals of the day. If we were to have berries or maybe melon in the morning, strawberries, for example, are a great way to have an easy breakfast accompaniment. And then throughout the day, you can add vitamin C. Potatoes and Brussel sprouts are a great way to go. Oh, and did I mention acorn squash? A great source of vitamin C. Who would have known? I love the fact that these beauties are baked up super easy. Cut it open, add a little bit of sweet spice, so cinnamon and allspice, and it's a wonderful dinner or lunch item for your table. And so I love the fact that when we look at the antioxidant powers of vitamin C, that's where we're getting a lot of our nutrition. So nutrition matters so much in preventing disease, but also treating disease. So what do we mean by an antioxidant? That is when we fight the oxidation of free radicals. Now we're getting science, right? So free radicals are basically what happens in our body when chemicals that are healthy break down. And so part of aging, we have chemicals break down. But if we want to make sure that we minimize that progression of the chemicals breaking down, vitamin C is an antioxidant. It's an anti-oxidation chemical. Now, something that I think is interesting, when I did my research on who should supplement vitamin C, it's really not clear at all. We have not found any good research that says taking a supplement of vitamin C helps anyone. Now, there is a caveat there. If we think of supplement, the one group of people that does seem to benefit is the athlete. And why is that? Because the athlete has a lot going on in their body, especially when they're doing a lot of heavy training. They have a lot of oxidation happening in their bodies. So breaking down of tissues means that now we've got to minimize the breakdown of those tissues. And vitamin C absolutely does that for us. Who would have known? And as I teach more and more people about eating plant-based, it's easy to get enough vitamin C. Using all the bright colors, using citrus as well as the melons, and of course adding beautiful herbs to our dishes all through the day make it very workable. So when we go back to our other vitamin C functions, we know that vitamin C fuels brain function. We know that it's very much involved in serotonin. Let's talk a little bit about that. When we think of serotonin, that is a very important brain chemical. Serotonin is involved in our immune system. It's also also involved in body rhythms. So body rhythms, what I mean by that is our normal sleep and wake cycle, also mood. Having a normal elevation and feeling good is definitely involved in that serotonin production. And also, when we think of serotonin, the other components that are really important is the endocrine system. So what do I mean by the endocrine system? That is all of our hormone systems that are built in our body, really geared by the central nervous system. The hypothalamus is so involved in this endocrine pathway. And if we don't have enough serotonin, those pathways will be not functioning at their best. So, great reason to have lots of vitamin C rich foods are going to make sure that our neurochemistry is working at its very best. And the more and more we think about our immune system, we want to make sure that not only do we have plenty of vitamin C, we know that eating more foods from the earth are going to also give us plenty of great amino acids, as well as beta carotene and the B vitamins. And so the nice thing is, when we start adding in all of these foods, we get an added bonus, not just the vitamin C, but plenty of fiber and protein and complex carbohydrates as well. And the nice thing too is we get so much beautiful flavor. Parsley is one of those herbs that are easy to grow, and they go in so many dishes. Don't just save parsley for Thanksgiving. It's something that you can add to your eggs, any rice dish. Of course, it goes beautifully in grains as well. And so usually when I'm making a Buddha bowl, I find some way to add parsley in. And instead of doing a teaspoon or a sprig, I do cups. And whether they're going to be marinated or even just lightly sauteed, it's such a beautiful way to add not only vitamin C, but a lot of nutrients. So when you're thinking about building your immune system, think about the leafy greens. Not only do we want to add parsley, but of course cilantro is loaded with vitamin C. And then when we get into the kale and the red chard, those are also loaded with vitamin C. Anything that's leafy green, anything from the earth is going to be a great accompaniment. Let's check on our goodies here and see how they're cooking along. Oh yeah, this is perfect. It's cooked down just enough, and so now I'm going to turn down the heat, and I'm going to add in a few more ingredients. Yeah, that looks so perfect. So to bump up the acidity a little bit, I'm going to add some lemon. I want to make sure that I sample along the way, because sometimes the cranberries can be a little bit tart. And so adding a little bit of coconut sugar is just fine. And again, you can always add a little bit more orange juice too. The orange juice concentrate is an excellent way to add, and you can just grab it out of the freezer. In case you don't have fresh oranges, this works beautifully. I use a tablespoon and a half per bag of cranberries, the fresh organic, and that just sweetens it up so nicely. So I'm going to stir it around. Now sometimes people like it to be really creamy. If you wanted to let it cook a little more, you could, or you could even put it through a sieve or a masher. But honestly, I think this texture is absolutely gorgeous. So I'm going to leave it just like that. My next dish is going to be with the Brussels sprouts. Again, loaded with vitamin C. If we were to eat a cup of Brussels sprouts, 2/3 of a cup of potato and half a cup of my cranberry chutney, I would have enough vitamin C for 3 days. Crazy, right? I love the fact that there's so many ways to add vitamin C and great flavor. Now, a couple of tricks with our little Brussels sprout. I'm going to slice them, and I'm going to do a quick little fry. Now, you can also pre-boil these and then put them in the oven with some flavors on the outside. Then they turn out soft and luscious always on the inside. You don't have to worry about them being dried on the outside and still tough in the center. So whether you want to do a pre-boil or cut them in small pieces like this, it's a great way to have a nice, tender Brussels sprout. So Brussels sprouts are in the cabbage family, so that tells me that any of the cabbage group is still going to be loaded in vitamin C. I'm going to add a little bit of citrus here to my beautiful celery and parsley. Every chance I get, I'm going to add in citrus. You know, a really good base of cooking should always have 4 components. Something savory, like herbs, something that's going to have salt in it, so of course adding a little Himalayan sea salt, and then you always want to have acidity, so that's where the lemon is going to come in. And then of course a little bit of sweet. So the orange could be my sweet, the lemon could be my citrus or my acidity level, and then I've got my savory. So a wonderful way to add flavor is truly to use your citrus, making sure that you get a little bit of tartness and a little bit of sweetness. Yeah, this is turning out beautifully. Love it. So now I'm going to put my Brussels sprouts into my pan. And there, I'm going to do a quick little saute in the skillet. And I'm going to start with a dry saute so I can have plenty of beautiful browning reagent. And that adds that little bit of sweetness. So again, when we're doing our beautiful balance of flavors, we do want to make sure that we have a little bit of sweetness. And what I love is whenever we cook the Brussels sprouts, they can absolutely add in that sweetness. So I'm going to let the skillet warm up a little bit more, and then I'll add in the oil. So slice these little ends off, and if you want, you could boil them at this stage. Once you cut off that end, it's a perfect way just to drop it into some boiling water for about 2, maybe 3 minutes. These are beautifully fresh though, so they're not going to need too much time. And again, I'm going to be sauteing these, so I'll get a nice caramelization. Yeah, that's perfect. We always want to get a little sizzle on them, and then after we do the dry heat for about 1.5 minutes, then I can add in some oil. The other one I have on my table here are tomatoes. Did you know that tomatoes are a great source of vitamin C? And not to mention beta-carotene. When I was doing my research for our class today, I did also read that there's some exciting research around vitamin C and cancer. You know, it's one of those amazing vitamins that was really studied in the early 1900s and identifying that it has such great power in helping to preserve cells and keeping them strong so that they grow in the right way. And so we love that just eating foods from the earth give us a great resource for that fantastic vitamin. And again, we don't really need to take a pill. I think it's so important to use foods as much as we can so you don't have to take a vitamin supplement. If you have an athlete that's really training hard, like I mentioned, or if you have somebody that is easily getting sick, so high risk for allergies, that's another case where if you feel like you want to add in a supplement, you can. But if you could use real food, it's always going to be a best choice. Always a best choice. Okay, these are looking great. It's time to add a little bit of oil. So here we go, just a little bit of olive oil right in the skillet. Again, I want to use a little bit at a time because if we overcook any vegetable, we do lose some of that vitamin C. And so we just want to get a little sizzle. I've used about probably a teaspoon or 2 of the olive oil, and that's going to be all we need just to get a little browning action, again for that sweetness. And I'm going to go ahead and slice in some tomato. Again, getting a great source of more vitamin C, and it's going to add a little bit of moisture. One of my favorite crops to grow are tomatoes. You can have a fall tomato, but of course the very best are going to be in the summer. And so I don't usually have these beautiful ones in the bakery, but I did get some of these from a farmer's market. And look how beautiful they are. So really, whenever you can get them on the stem, they're probably going to have the most nutrients kept inside. So on the stem, and keep them on the stem as long as you can before you're ready to use them. And that way they stay as fresh as possible. And you know, tomatoes do not need to go in the refrigerator. We want to keep them on the counter, again with the stem on, and they really stay beautiful. Look how pretty this is. Looking just great. So when you're sauteing your Brussels sprouts, you want to try to keep them in the skillet for about 3 to 5 minutes. Now I'm starting to add a little bit of the liquid, and that's where I added the olive oil. Again, about 1.5 teaspoons. And now I'm just starting to flip over the pieces so that we get some pretty browning reaction. That is a gorgeous dish, isn't it? As soon as I'm getting a little more color there, I'm going to add my celery back in. So I've got all these beautiful colors. This is going to be one of my side dishes for a very special dinner. And you know, more and more people are leaving the turkey or the meat out of their special meals. And so using this as a plant-based meal is great. Guess where I'm getting all the protein in this beautiful dish? Well, let me tell you, potatoes as well as Brussels sprouts are a rich source of protein. So oftentimes the vitamin C follows protein-rich foods. The acorn squash is also going to be a good source of protein in addition to that high source of beta-carotene and the vitamin C. So it's a wonderful way to get a balanced meal and still eating more from the earth. I'm going to add a little bit more parsley. It's a nice idea to have the parsley added in at the very end as well as some more deeply sauteed. Because notice this is going to have a softer texture, and then the flavors also get softer. So I'm going to add in some fresh parsley right at the end along with a little bit of salt, and it'll be a great way to finish it off. It's got about another minute or so to go, so I'm going to add it in. And if you don't already have a great chopping knife, look for one that's got a nice edge, a little angle at the back, and you're still going to be using that center towards the back about 2/3. That's where all your chopping happens. So I'm going to do a rough chop, add them in. Looking gorgeous. And I think I'm going to take one more tomato just to finish it off. You know you've got a sharp knife when you can cut through a tomato without having to dig into it too hard. Nice slice across and drop it in. So to finish it off, I'm going to add a little bit of salt, so a Himalayan salt and pepper, and this dish is absolutely gorgeous. So again, how much vitamin C do I need in a day? Well, we could look at the USRDA and it would tell us about how much we need. But honestly, I think the best way to do it is just to focus on getting good foods. Foods from the earth that are rich in vitamin C are often going to be bright in color, so something that is bright red, bright yellow, or just like the sailors had to have, which was a lime to prevent their scurvy. One lime a day is all it needed to prevent that disease. But for us, we don't want to just prevent disease. We want to improve and maximize our health. That's why we want more than just a lime here and there or a little squeeze of lemon in our tea. We want to make sure that we've got wonderful ways to add vitamin C that really shows up with the protein and the fiber and the complex carbohydrates that we get in a wonderful plant-based diet. So whether you add turkey to your meal or some chicken or fish or just want to go all veggies, make sure you get some beautiful colors and grab some beautiful herbs from your garden to finish off your plate. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I hope to see you back soon.